like to introduce David Eedle. He's no stranger to speaking on IT issues, being a successful co-founder of the Arts Hub, which he recently sold off to an established business interest, and is now the co-founder of Collecting. So over to David Eedle. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Craig. And congratulations also, Craig, too, on the organisation. Just terrific. I was actually a bit nonplussed when I sat down to think about what I was going to talk about this afternoon. I've been messing around with the internet since, well, I remember the internet before there were pictures on it, when we were still doing everything in text, and then I discovered somebody sent me a piece of software called Trumpet Windsock, which allowed you to get access to the World Wide Web, and I think that was about 1993 or something like that. And of course, being a complete geek, I couldn't help myself, so I started building web pages. So my background is mostly in paid content. I've built and sold 2 subscription content websites, one that Craig just alluded to that grew to a reasonable size, plus a bunch of side projects, including a collaborative writing desktop tool. I just filed to liquidate the company. Google Docs kind of put us out of business, but we did all right. We did all right for a year or two. Unfortunately, I can't outspend Google in the marketing stake, so we had to put that one to bed. I also built a social network called folklikeme.com about 4 or 5 years ago, and I'm not worth $3 billion, so clearly whatever it was that we did wasn't right. It's still there, but I try not to look at it too much. So look, I've been messy. I literally only joined, again, I'm a newcomer to Facebook in the sense that I joined up in the middle of last year, and probably as a result of the publicity over the opening up of the applications platform and the API, and I just wanted to go and see what it was about. I don't actually have a vast number of friends who use Facebook, which probably says a bit about the sort of particular age demographic I sit in. It also probably has something to do with the fact that, like Mark Zuckerberg, there isn't a category for dropout for Monash University. I didn't even manage to get through first year. So I hadn't already met through Facebook through that early connections through universities and so on. I tend to be a dreadful cynic, and this is because I've launched companies, I've lost money on companies, and I've also made some money on companies. And I have a background prior to all of this IT stuff of 10 or 12 years in arts and entertainment, where you never have any money and you always have to do everything for as little money as possible. And therefore, revenue is absolute key, and every single thing you do boils down to how many tickets can I sell as a result of this. And when we ran a subscription content business, the filter that we put every single decision and conversation through was, does this sell any subscriptions? So if one of our team came to us and said, well, we've got this Fabo idea, we want to do, I can remember discussion forums for a little while. I'm going to be really nice about this because the 2 web developers from Arts Hub who I managed to invite are actually here, so I'll be really nice because they've just introduced discussion forums, and now I'm going to tell them why they're not going to work. Because I got talked into introducing discussion forums. It was a complete and utter flop. I discovered that my customers, despite the fact they loved us so much that they gave us money every year, and for some they'd been doing it for 4 or 5 years, had absolutely not the slightest piece of interest in talking to each other. They simply wanted to receive the content that they had paid for, and they weren't interested in all the other in any set dressing around it all. So they were interested in the core offering. I sat down yesterday to have a think about, as I say, to what I would talk about today, and I'll start with the cynical bit, and then I have a couple of thoughts about where, which actually interesting listening to Marcus, because I think that we're probably pretty in tune about where, if you're going to do business and want to develop and make money doing business on Facebook, about where some opportunities might lie. I so hate those invitations about which member of the Simpsons family are you, have a free beer, oh, and I'm sorry, the stripper name won, Marcus. I haven't played it because that's an invitation that on Facebook that just don't even get opened, let alone added to my account. I so hate all of those sorts of things. And if somebody sends one to me, they'll tend to get a note back from me saying words to the effect of, please don't ever send this ever to me again. things like that can't remain virally indefinitely. And again, interesting listening to Marcus say, okay, well, we tried some things, they gained a bunch of users, and then they quietly died off, and then they're gathering dust. But then we've picked out one particular one that seems to have some feature set that is of appeal, and now we're working on ensuring that that remains viable and grows, and so on. These little things like send a beer to people, it's just this, if you're going to try and make money out of that, I presume you're going to have to build one a week or something like that. I mean, it's endless. And maybe I'm just not very creative, but I can't think of enough competitions to go with. So, and the signal to noise ratio just gets bigger. When Facebook apps launched, is it May or something last year? 0 apps. Today, where are we now? 16, 17,000? I haven't checked today. And there's an awful lot of invitations flying around, to the point where Facebook the other day has actually limited the number of, they've actually started to put throttles on the number of invitations that people can receive, or how the invitation system works. So some people are just overwhelmed. They're getting 40 a day. It's just ridiculous. No wonder some companies are banning Facebook in the workplace. Some companies embrace it, but some are banning it because they see they essentially see it as a time waster. You're totally dependent on Facebook. I don't know about you, but basing my entire business model and business plan on somebody else's business success gives me the shivers, because I have absolutely no control over what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, whether they'll continue to do it, or whether they'll continue to do it the same way. Which, of course, who says the platform won't change? Well, if any of you who are already building on Facebook knows, the Facebook application platform changes every 5 minutes. And every time it changes, there's a new bug, and then they fix that bug and release 5 new features, one of which doesn't work. You're in a constant, even if you've got an application right now, you're in a constant cycle of having to redevelop, and that's just to keep your existing application going, let alone rushing off and building something else. Again, like Marcus, I think we share the same philosophy. Everything that we have been successful with on the internet for the last 10 years, the stuff that feeds my children, bought my house, puts petrol in my car, is all based around recurrent, long-term relationships with customers who continue to spend money. And it's not actually advertising driven. It's always about getting transactions rolling and getting repeat transactions. That is, getting people to buy a product or service from me, or where we're the middle mechanism intersposed in a transaction where we're getting a cut or something like that. So every single dollar we've made over the last 10 years has probably 90% of it has come from transactions. And therefore I look at the Facebook platform and wonder how I'm going to create applications that are actually going to get those transactions going. And I'll mention 1 or 2 things in a moment. I'm 41. I tend to be extremely cynical about social networks. When I first read about the 6 degrees of separation and so on, I tended to call it stepping on your friends for personal gain, and particularly those professional networks where you're a member of I don't know, LinkedIn or something, and I've got a mate, but he's got a mate who's the CEO or chairman of some great big company, and because he's a mate of my mate, he'll introduce me, and all of a sudden I'll get venture capital funding. Well, it doesn't work like that, because that's not the real world. So I tended to look at this whole notion, tend to look at social networks as a bit of a, not necessarily reflecting reality, and that bugs me a little bit. Then again, I thought virtual gifts were stupid. Hands up, everybody thinks virtual gifts are stupid. It's an icon, and it's what, 24 pixels square? It's $1 US, which is, goodness, almost an Australian dollar today. And Facebook did 15 million of those in the first 6 weeks. There's a social, or more, there's a social network in South Korea that's doing 300,000 a week of those things. It's a picture. It's this big. And you're spending real money, not virtual currency, real money. And I thought that was the dumbest idea I'd ever read about. And there's, as I say, I mean, Facebook did 15 million in the first week, month or 6 weeks or whatever it was.